Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me today. My name is Dr. Merle Massie. I'm the coordinator of the Undergraduate Research Initiative here at the University of Saskatchewan. This session is a re-recording of the session that I just gave down in Thorvaldson 126 on the research landscape at the University of Saskatchewan. Apologies, we had sound technical difficulties, so I'm re-recording. And with that, I will go forward and showcase what I have to tell you. So as we gather here today, I am sitting on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis, and I pay my respect to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm my relationship with one another. The second below is my own personal land recognition, which I often use. If you have a chance to work with the Gwenamaw Center for Teaching and Learning and create your own land acknowledgement, I do recommend it. So when I was a beginning undergraduate student back in the dark ages, when the dinosaurs roamed in 1989, I knew nothing, absolutely nothing about a university's research landscape. I didn't understand. I thought of university as a place where I went to take classes, to get a degree, to get a job, and that's all that I really knew. But so I knew nothing about research, but then I came to the university and I did my undergrad here. I have a double honors in English and history. And it was during that time as an undergraduate student that I took a class, a history class actually, that asked me to go to the archive and conduct original research and write a paper based on my original research. And that was it. I was hooked. I did all this research, all this studying. I studied Saskatchewan history, and so I was interested in that. I studied the Homemakers Association, so Women's Association, Rural Association, and the Women's Grain Growers Association, which were two different women's rural associations, and compared the two. And I was completely hooked, and it was one of my favorite papers that I ever wrote in university. And so as a result of that, I came back and I did my master's, and then I came back again. There was a bit of a gap there. I had children and got married and all that stuff. But I did my PhD, which I got in 2010. I was a postdoctoral fellow in the School of Environment and Sustainability from 2011 to 2013. And as a result of that, they asked me to be an adjunct professor with SENS, which I still maintain, although I'm now a professional research associate because I'm an employee of the university. I also did a postdoctoral fellowship with SSHRC, so the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, won funding to do that. And then I was a research officer on a research project, the Cooperative Innovation Project here at the university. We came out of the Center for the Study of Cooperatives. I did a lot of contract research and writing, and then I accepted my current position as the coordinator for the Undergraduate Research Initiative in 2019. And I tell you this because I feel like I've come full circle. I had so much enjoyment from my time of doing research as an undergraduate student that this position was the perfect fit for me, because I can share my enthusiasm for research with undergraduate students and help all of you find ways to enter into research here at the university. So University of Saskatchewan is a university in Canada that is about creativity, collaboration, and research success. You'll notice that the word teaching is not there. When we talk about when the university talks about itself to the world, we talk about being one of Canada's top research universities. This is our primary mandate, and we're very proud of it, and we're very good at it. But it is our goal to make life better for Saskatchewan and the world, which is why we are the university the world needs. We are one of Canada's U15 universities. So these are research intensive universities that self-identify as research intensive and are measured by others as accepted. Yes, that's a research intensive university. So we're a member of the U15. In fact, our president, Peter Stoichkov, is the head of the U15. He just got elected to that position. And USask is a medical doctoral university. That means that our university can award doctorates, so PhDs. Not every university does that. Lots of undergraduate universities don't have that capability, but we are a graduate university and we are able to award masters and PhDs and in a high number of programs across the university. We're also a medical university, which means that we have a college of medicine. We train doctors. We also train nurses, we train dentists, and we train we have a College of Veterinary Medicine to train veterinarians. So we have a high number of professional colleges, including engineering, education, and people come out of the University of Saskatchewan with degrees that are recognized by professional associations, PAG, that are recognized by professional associations. And that's why we are a medical doctoral university. So the way the University of Saskatchewan is structured is that we have a whole bunch of colleges and schools. I'm not going to go through all of these, but chances are you're a student in one of these. Perhaps you've started in College of Arts and Science, but there are a number of direct entry colleges, and you might be over there. We also have a number of affiliated and federated colleges. These are colleges that have the right to issue USask credit for classes that they teach. So St. Thomas More is the Catholic college here on campus, and they also offer University of Saskatchewan accredited courses. St. Peter's College is a private, it's in a monastery actually in Munster, and you can stay at St. Peter's College and take University of Saskatchewan classes. There are a number of others across Saskatchewan. We also have a number of centers and facilities. And again, I'm not going to go through this, but if you want to look up centers at the University of Saskatchewan, there's a huge, long, rolling laundry list of all kinds of centers. And what these are research facilities and research intensive centers where they focus on a particular area that they do research on. Some of the ones that I've had the pleasure of working with or having colleagues from are GIFT, so the Global Institute for Food Security, GWIS, the Global Institute for Water Security, SCIPR, the Saskatchewan Centre for Patient-Oriented Research, CDC, the Crop Development Centre, CLS, the Canadian Light Source, VIDO, Vaccine and Infectious Diseases Organization. We've been very grateful to have them throughout the pandemic, and the Sylvia Fedoruk Canadian Centre for Nuclear Innovation, where they make medical isotopes for use if you perhaps have to show up at the hospital and you need a scan, a PET scan or a CT scan. They need medical isotopes to do that, and they're made right here at the University of Saskatchewan. So we have a high number of research intensive centers and facilities, and this is a very, very short list amongst a much, much longer list. One of the other ways that the university sort of identifies itself as a research university is that they've created these signature areas of research. These are areas of research and scholarship that the University of Saskatchewan is known for, both federally and internationally. And so it helps, these are the areas that we sort of pay particular attention to, or that others pay attention to the research that we put out and that we publish, because they know that these in these areas, USask has a strategic or a known research depth. So agriculture, energy and mineral resources, Indigenous peoples, synchrotron sciences, One Health, water, communities and sustainability. That's one of the new ones. We did a refresh in 2021. So communities and sustainability, health and wellness, and quantum innovation were the two that came out of that process that just were announced this spring in 2022. Of course, universities are led by leaders. These are our 5 leaders. This is the executive leadership team. So Peter Stoichev, who's our president and vice chancellor, he's sort of our outward focused person who leads the university. That's why he just got elected to the U15 to lead the U15. Dr. Irene, who's our provost and VP academics, so her focus tends to be more internal to the university. So under her mandate are to look after faculty and to look after students. Dr. Baljit Singh, he's our vice president of research. He's actually my boss's boss, so he's my boss. Dr. Singh's mandate is, as the Vice President of Research, is to support the University of Saskatchewan's research community and to find ways to make sure that our research is on solid footing and has what it needs to really be robust and to grow. Greg Fowler is our Vice President of Finance and Resources. So of course he's our money guy and helps and has a whole group of students to look after that. Not students, sorry, staff to look after that. And resources, so including student resources, human resources, as well as the facilities here on campus. And Cheryl Hamlin is our new Vice President of University Relations. And so it is her job to help shepherd all of our partnerships. So those are community partnerships, provincial partnerships with the provincial government, federal partnerships and international partnerships, as well as, of course, our university communications. So these are all very busy people who have distinct areas that they look after, but Dr. Baljit Singh is directly responsible for the research function of the University of Saskatchewan. And of that, so his Office of the Vice President Research is about creating new knowledge across all of the disciplines. So all of the disciplines from the arts all the way to natural sciences and health sciences, any place where we're creating something new that didn't exist before. That is research, scholarly, and artistic work. And it helps with our vitality. And together we will unleash discovery that the world needs. Everyone needs a little more Saskatchewan because we're pretty awesome. If you're interested, Dr. Baljit Singh gave a campus address on Friday, September 16th, 2022. And I just let you kind of know that it's here. If you search it on YouTube, you will find it. But Dr. Singh gave a research address to let us know what all has been happening across the University of Saskatchewan under that research mandate for the past year. I want to switch a little bit. So I've given you kind of that broad scale overview, but one of the questions that I had as a student is like, why do universities conduct research? Why is this a thing? And so I kind of wanted to address that a little bit. And first of all, it's because we are publicly funded. The University of Saskatchewan is a publicly funded university primarily by the government of Saskatchewan. That's one of our largest stakeholders, because what we do here is under public ownership. We do public ownership of new knowledge and discovery. And that's really important, because imagine if the university was a business unto itself, then we keep all our research and discovery to ourselves and we would only share it if somebody paid us. Well, you know, not everybody would have the money for that. And so the government has already paid us to conduct the research so that we can share it more broadly. It also is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It will allow us to draw investment and more students. And so being a research intensive university allows companies to invest in the University of Saskatchewan because we have such expertise here that they would like us to work on problems that they're interested in. And so they'll bring funding to us for those reasons. And also students want to come here because of the research intensive aspect of our university. The next thing that it does, universities conduct research because it actually increases our university ranking. So that universities are ranked against each other on a number of measures, and research is one of them. And so it helps us to attract and support high-profile researchers from around the world. We've had great success in this area. It also helps us with our metrics. So our funding, so when we to her that hath shall be given. So the universities that achieve research funding usually get given more research funding because it builds a culture of research and a culture of knowledge generation. We have a high number of research chairs, which we are growing. And of course, we always publish about our research and tell other people about how amazing we are and what we've been up to. But it does increase our university ranking when we increase our funding, our number of research chairs, our publications, our other metrics, including our sustainable development goals. So our work on the sustainable development goals falls here, and we are #1 in Canada on number 17, which is fantastic. Research also builds new knowledge and lifelong learners. So when you're studying at an institution like the University of Saskatchewan that has this research mandate where new knowledge is being found all the time and we're constantly sharing it, you're inside a space where knowledge is valued and you're always at the cutting edge. So you're not going to be reading a textbook from 1989. It's not relevant. We've moved on. That's 30+ years ago. We've got a lot more going on. But that building new knowledge, it helps to educate students to be leaders and innovators. And that's really, really important because it flips that switch between just being passively learning and memorizing past research and past knowledge and actually being on the cutting edge of learning how to develop new knowledge. And that's really where we want you to be. We also want to have professors in those classrooms teaching you and that they are at the cutting edge of what's happening in their discipline so that they can convey to you the very latest knowledge and maybe bring you into their research programs and give you a job, again, at that cutting edge of research. So those are some of the reasons why universities conduct research. So that's at the university level. What about at an individual professor level? Why would a professor want to get involved in this? Well, basically they're trained to do it. So I am Dr. Merle Massie. I hold a PhD, and PhDs mean that I've been tested and tried. I have gained a lot of research skills, and I have been awarded my PhD because I have met the criteria for a PhD in my discipline, which is history. And PhDs are trained in research, not in teaching. So this is something that students don't always know. But your professor standing at the front of your room doesn't necessarily have an education degree from the College of Education, unless you're in the College of Education. Most of them have education degrees as well. However, everybody else, they have a PhD, most likely, probably 98% of the professors at university have a PhD, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they were trained for teaching. However, we have the Gwen Moss Center for Teaching and Learning on campus, and that's where professors go to get some additional training in handling things well in the classroom and doing a good job on the teaching side of their portfolio. But at the same time, that may or may not have happened while they were training to do their PhD. Professors have research programs and they have obligations aside from teaching. Usually the split is 40% research, 40% teaching, and 20% service. Service means that they're on active committees for the university, and they may be working on different aspects or functions on the background of the university, whether it's at the department level, the college level, or the university-wide level. There's a lot of questions and things that need to be raised around governance or new classes or new institutes or anything, any kind of change at the university. So 20% of their time is spent on that kind of work, and then it's split between teaching and research. Professors also want to conduct research because they're not only good at it, they're trained for it, they're interested in it, they've landed their positions because they want to do it, but they're also measured by it. So their merit and review and advancement, most of that is based on their research chops, on their research abilities, their capabilities, and their research outputs. And so this is where you'll hear the word tenure. That basically means that a professor has proven to the university that they're good at what they do, and the university awards them tenure because it says, yes, we want to keep you for as long as you want to stay here. And that's what tenure is all about. It also helps with advancement. So when a professor is hired, if they're hired to a tenure track position, when they're hired, they're at the assistant level. So they might say assistant professor in their biography. When they've achieved their next level of advancement, they become an associate professor. Usually that's also when they're awarded tenure. And then they become, the next level up is to become a full professor. Lots of professors also vie to become research chairs. This is very prestigious, and so they want it. These chairs can be funded by industry. They can also be funded by the federal government through one of the tri-agencies. I'll talk about that in a minute. But these research chairs usually come with additional research funding that the chair can use to hire students to help with their particular research area that they're interested in and that they're continuing to work on. Professors also conduct research because it allows them to be put forward for awards and recognition, especially things like the Royal Society of Canada. So a professor that has an RSC after their name, that means that they're a senior professor that's been awarded a place within the Royal Society of Canada. They've been recognized by their peers across Canada for their expertise in their area and their contributions to their discipline. So, but that's just one kind of example of an award or a recognition. There are many others. So with that, I want to pause for just a moment and take a big deep breath. The best way to really think about research is to understand it from the research life cycle and to understand how a professor might engage in research and what that whole life cycle of a research project might look like. And so that's the way that I've broken the rest of the presentation. So the research life cycle. And so that starts first at the concept and planning area. So proposal development and getting funding. There is a pause channel that goes through the research life cycle. So the next time you've logged into pause here at the University of Saskatchewan, up in the search bar in your pause, you can type in research, and there's a whole research channel that you can favorite on your pause, and then you can kind of see the research life cycle for yourself. Also, side note, all of the photographs that I've used in this presentation come from the Images of Research Competition 2021 ran by the University of Saskatchewan. This is of a hunting camp, a camp in the Saskatchewan River Delta. So the first thing the professor does, so they've got a great idea and they want to conduct some research, but the first thing they need is money. So professors spend a lot of time writing grants. They do get a lot of help from the university in that process. So you do receive some training as a graduate student to write grants, but some professors show up and they're in their first year of a university position, and one of the first things that they have to sit down and do is figure out how to write a grant. We do have a lot of support here at the university level for that. New faculty often start with base funding. So because we know that it takes time to get a grant in place, so we start them with some base funding so that they can get their research projects up and off the ground and hire some students and kind of get going until they kind of land their first grant. So we do usually start new faculty with some base funding. We have research facilitators embedded across most of the colleges, and the research facilitators can help undergraduate or help faculty to write those grants and to provide some feedback on that, let them know about any new granting opportunities, these sorts of things that research facilitators work with. We also have research acceleration and strategic initiatives. This is the office that I'm actually attached to. So the office of the Undergraduate Research Initiative is considered a strategic initiative from the University of Saskatchewan because we want undergraduate students to become part of this research community, which is why I'm here today. But some of the other things that RASI, so RASI, Research Acceleration and Strategic Initiatives, we call ourselves RASI. Some of the things that we do include internal reviews. So we have a process set up where if a professor has written a grant application and they'd like to get some internal feedback on that, we have a process set up for that. We also have some internal funding here at the university. Let's say that they maybe weren't successful or they're waiting to hear about a larger research grant from external to the university. We do have some competitive internal funding opportunities, as well as international funding opportunities that come up quite regularly. We have strategic facilitation that is specific for really large scale grants. So grants that maybe combine multiple institutions, so more than just U of S, but multiple institutions and multiple faculty at those institutions, and maybe even some external partners as well. So these are huge multi-million-dollar grants. So we have a whole core of strategic facilitators that support those because they're quite large and complex and have multiple stages, and someone needs to be kind of, watching to make sure that those are clear and can go all the way through. We also have a number of people that help with pre-grant review to make sure that all the things are in place before a grant gets awarded, and then once a professor is awarded a grant, some post-award support. So that's some of the things that we do here at the university level to support university research. Where does the funding come from? University is a place where the first thing you learn is acronyms. We have a lot of them. The three on this page are probably the most common ones that you will hear across the university all the time. So the Canadian Institute for Health Research, CIHR, is where most of the health funding comes from. So if you're over in the College of Medicine, Nursing, Dentistry, or even some of the policy work around health, this might be where you get some of your funding from. So psychology often will come from here. Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council, it's SSHRC, but we pronounce it SHIRK, which my mother used to spell S-H-I-R-K. Yeah, thanks, Mom, because this is where my funding always came from. Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council supports humanities, social sciences, and the arts. So all of the researchers across the university who are in those areas, such as historians, anyone doing language, anyone in English, anyone doing art, drama, music, this is where you go for funding. And the Natural Sciences and Engineering Council, so we shorten that to say NSERC. NSERC is the largest of the three granting institutions, mostly because the scientific research that happens under there, they're very similar to CIHR in that the scientific research sometimes can have very, very high costs and more than maybe what an artist needs or a historian. And so those costs are flow through NSERC out to the universities, to professors who have won grants. There's other options for funding. So the Canada Foundation for Innovation is a large scale granting institution, and it comes from the Government of Canada. The New Frontiers in Research from the Government of Canada, it's at the tri-agency level, so it's not specific to CIHR, NSERC, or SSHRC. It's one level higher. That's why I mention it, because sometimes there's calls that might be more discipline specific, but some of them are quite broad. My tax is also federal funding, but that one specifically connects faculty and students from a university with a industry. And so students at the university might land a summer job or an internship, and they could be 4 months, 8 months, 12 months, 16-month internship with an industry partner. And so my tax is a great space for research and experience. Those in the College of Agriculture can access a lot of checkoff funding, and that's, so I am a farmer. My husband and I also run a farm. And when we sell our grain at the elevator, off of our check, before we receive our check, we have agreed, so farmers have agreed that we think that research is a good thing. And so the Canola Council can take a little bit of off of each one of our checks, and that goes into a big pot for research funding. The Wheat Commission does the same thing. And so we call that checkoff funding because we check it right off of our checks, and it goes into these big pots. And then we have nonprofit organizations that professors can apply to for funding, and they can land funding from agriculture checkoff funding. Our nonprofit societies in Canada, so the Canadian Cancer Agency, the Lung Association, there's various others, particularly in the field of medicine. There's a lot of research funding from those nonprofit societies that professors can access as well. There's quite a bit of funding that comes in from industry funded chairs. There's also institutional and federal funded research chairs. So attached to a research chair, depending on the size and scope of it, there might be anywhere from $200,000 to $1 million or more in research funding that's attached to a particular chair. And so the professor who holds that chair gets a chance to kind of say where that research funding is going to go and what they're going to spend it on. There's also every once in a while some industry funded one-time or special projects that will come through the university. I was part of one of those. I was the project officer, the research officer for the Cooperative Innovation Project from 2013 to 2015. And that's an example of a very large $1 million grant specific to a research project that came in from outside the university. We've had a lot of funding success. The universities last year had just under $250 million in research revenue. We also get a lot of international funding, so the tune of about $27 million in international funding. And these are some other statistics around the research funding success and international engagement that we've had here at the university. So the next aspect of the research life cycle, so you've won a big grant. All right, what do you do next? So the next is exploring and organizing, getting your ethics in place and getting your people in place. So what that oftentimes can look like is equipment, so purchasing equipment, and that could be anything from, the liquids that you might need in your lab, or, new pipettes or new test tubes or something like that, all the way up to buying a helicopter, because you need a helicopter to, conduct your research on polar bears. Whatever it is that you might need. Lots of lab and fieldwork preparation. Let's imagine that you are a university professor who studies snow, and you need to be out in the field in the winter, but you also need to teach. So you need to kind of juggle your schedules and get things set up, but you also need to maybe work with communities, get your research space set up out at the community level or out in the field. Or let's say that you're doing agricultural research and you need to plant those fields or plant the stuff in the greenhouse because you're going to be doing research on those plants. So there's a lot of field work and preparation done. So again, planning, timelines, and organization. Again, when you're going to go out to the field, when you're going to manage your research, that takes a lot of planning. You need to think ahead. If you're like me and you're going to an archive and you need to be going to Ottawa, you need to send them ahead. I'm going to come down to Ottawa. I'm going to be there these dates, and I want to look at these boxes, and then they'll have the boxes pulled for you, and then you're ready to go as soon as you land on the ground. So this kind of organization. You need to also do a lot of data organization. Let's say that you've got a lot of high computing needs. You need to have the infrastructure in place to handle those high computing needs. So you need to have good data management plans in place. So this is where you would do a research data management plan. If you're going to be doing work with animals, you need to have your animal ethics approval. If you're going to be doing work with live humans, you need to have human, that's behavioral research ethics approval. These are very massive applications. They're very detailed, and they take a lot of time to write, and they take a lot of time to have them supported and okayed on the other side, so approved on the other side. And so you need to have time in your schedule to work on these and to work through the approval process. And then, of course, you need people. Very few researchers can conduct all their research themselves. Usually they build a whole research lab or project group that helps them to conduct their research. And that could be anywhere from, research managers, all the postdocs in their lab, graduate students at the PhD level, at the master's level, and a lot of professors across campus really love also hiring undergraduate students. So this is where my office really comes in, because I try and help connect students with faculty who might be looking for new undergraduate student assistants. And one of the reasons why professors will hire undergraduate students is because you have very fresh minds. You've not gone so far down the disciplinary path. You actually ask the most original questions and can actually send research in all kinds of new directions. So they love you, and they tend to hire you. So not lots of you, because they can only manage so many at once, because we are still learning when we're at the undergraduate level. But many of the strongest labs on campus regularly hire undergraduate students because of your fresh minds. The next part in the research life cycle is collection and analysis. So that's specific to the discipline. So if you're in the social sciences, humanities, and fine arts, it might look like a scholarly or a literature review. It might look something more artistic. So you need space, you need equipment, you need supplies. If you're in the social sciences, you might be doing surveys or focus groups or interviews. So then you've got ethics approval that you need to get set up. Like me, physically going to an archive. So doing that, sitting down in the archive, finding what you need, reading what you need, following it wherever it goes. And then, of course, for all of these, doing analysis according to the needs of your discipline and conducting that analysis. And when you conduct that analysis, you might find holes in your research that you have to go back and find more stuff and kind of, and so the research life cycle is not linear. Oftentimes you reach a point and then you have to go back and fix something along the way, or reinvestigate and re-examine something. So that happens quite a lot. In the natural sciences, health sciences, and engineering, research might look a little bit different, but quite similar. Lab, field work, of course. So being physically in the lab and conducting tests and recording your data. Same with field work. So that's creating hypotheses, collecting data, running experiments, these sorts of things. And then the interpreting the results and then going back and rerunning things if things, maybe there's some outliers in there that you need to kind of check. So research again becomes that, sort of mini circle around collection and analysis until you finally feel like you've got something that multiple data sets that maybe you can kind of, and analyze them and analyze according to the discipline. And then you finally think that you've come up that I've got something original now that I would like to share. And that brings us to the next stage of the research life cycle, which is outputs and publications. This particular image I quite like because it's a cross between natural sciences and arts. So this was a research group here on campus that was conducting research on water, but some of the bits of the water that they were looking at, they went into the computer and they created some artistic simulations of what they were looking at and what they were investigating and finding. And so they created this image, which actually became the cover of the journal where they published their research. So this is definitely a cross between arts and science right there. So some of the outputs and publications could be things like intellectual property. You may discover something during your research or you may write something, of course, so then you've got copyright on that. But research excellence and innovation is our place on campus that can really help us with our intellectual property needs. Data management is really, really important. So good record keeping. And sometimes our data can be shared, not just with our other research partners, but we could potentially share our data, the raw data sets themselves. And maybe someone else can come along, take our raw data, and take their data and mash the two together and see something completely new and interesting. And so this is an area that the university is working on, good record keeping, so that we can share our data even more broadly, not just our own analysis and results and what we think, but maybe share the data itself, and other people can analyze it in different ways and say something interesting. But of course, publishing is our biggest area that our university shares their research. So that's through journal articles and books, which you then have access to through the university library. Conferences, so professors will attend conferences and give presentations on their research. They will also be asked to present to the media, although that's more of a secondary level of output. There's lots of metrics on publishing. So professors, you'll see that if you look at their resume, they'll list how many things they've published, because that actually matters. So their research productivity is measured in grants, but it's also measured in publications. And another area that the university is really supporting is open access publishing. That means accessing it not just to those journals that you have to go through the university library in order to read, but maybe in a space that's more on the open internet. So an open access journal that anyone can find and read from around the world. As professors are doing this, as they're conducting their research, always their minds are exploding with ideas for their next research project. Maybe there was, the scope of this particular research project went this far, but it raised some questions in this area, or raised some questions in this area. And so they know where they want to take their research next. The final part of the research life cycle is impact and engagement. And this is where professors will sometimes do things like telling their research story and speaking to the media. But it's also about when a research profile and impact is an Office of the Vice President Research, and it is their job to tell the university's research story. So we talk a lot about grants that we've won, chairs that we've won, awards that professors have won, any new amazing findings that we've had. And journalists call them and they're like, we need an expert in pig vaccines. Can you direct us? And journalists call because professors will then become expert witnesses in the media, or sometimes even expert witnesses on court cases, and that can happen as well. So this is about taking our research expertise and sharing it, not just within the research community, but outside the research community to that wider world. Professors will set, there's a website called ORCID, and we get our own individual identifier number, which is great, because then everything that we've done as a researcher, for example, me, I've got 4 books and a number of research articles, and I can upload all of those into ORCID. And then if somebody wants to Google me, they can find my ORCID number, and then they can see all my research metrics. And so this is a way for universities to kind of keep track of of the outputs that a researcher has. Another way, and this is something that's really growing here at the university, is commercialization. So sometimes when you're working as a researcher, you discover something that's actually worth money and that we can sell, or that is a business idea and can be worth making into a business. And so research excellence and innovation, which is part of the Office of the Vice President Research, will really help with faculty to decide if their discovery is something that should be commercialized, or even that the professor themselves should become an entrepreneur, set up their own company, and take their research into a company format and grow themselves as an entrepreneur. So the university is putting some heft behind that. It's called Opus. And so senior graduate students and faculty can join Opus, which is an incubator for entrepreneurs, for faculty research-based entrepreneurs. So that's something that's really exciting here at the university. And with that, that's the research life cycle. And of course, as professors go through this life cycle and as they run their research projects, they generate these new ideas of where they want to go next. And so then the research life cycle begins again, and they write up another grant to get more funding to take other research, and they hire more students, and the cycle goes again. And with that, that is the research landscape at the University of Saskatchewan. Thank you so much for joining us today.